I'm Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist at Nutrient Ag Solutions, and I want to thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. Now, before we get into this very active week coming forward, I want to just take a moment to go back and do some model verification. So a week ago, I gave you this forecast graphic, and it shows total accumulated precipitation over the last 7 days. The idea was that most of the heaviest rainfall was going to stay pretty far to the south of us over here in parts of the Carolinas up in the mid-Atlantic. And here's the verification. Overall, I have to say the European did a pretty good job picking up on that precipitation. In fact, it was even a little bit too wet getting into parts of South Carolina. And the reason why we do this is because we're assessing this next system that's coming through. And you can already start to see some evidence of it down here in the Baja of California, Mexico, Arizona, and California, as this deep upper level low cut through yesterday and emerged in parts of Mexico later and then is pulling out ahead of it quite a bit of moisture. So you can see all of this in the water vapor animation coming here into the southern plains of the United States. This is actually one of 3 separate systems we're watching going across the United States this week. Now, I say it was pretty potent. This was just a look last night, or actually early this morning, about 2 o'clock in the morning, at the lightning we had from some of the storms that were in here in parts of the southern plains. And before that, as this went through Arizona, beautiful picture here of some convection. I mean, this is summertime thunderstorm looking clouds here. And I want to thank Brianna for sharing this. This is near Scottsdale. So my point behind sharing this with you is that the system coming through is quite potent. Now, in the meantime, we do have stretched across the Midwest through the Corn Belt widespread winter weather advisories, and then in through here winter storm warnings. And then in the West, for systems number 2 and 3 coming through here, we also have a lot of that winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings, and even some strong wind advisories. And there's a lot of cold air tucked in behind this, even some wind chill warnings up here. Now, I tell you all of this because this will all ultimately be gathering along the East Coast, and we're going to watch to see how things change over here for the Carolinas as we look through these next few model runs. Now, in the near term, we're going to be on the warm sector of this cyclone. So as the low pressure center tracks in this direction, the warm sector is to its south and east. And we do have in here a general risk of thunderstorms and a marginal risk that some of those thunderstorms could be severe from Texas over here to parts of Tennessee and Kentucky. And so as the system moves farther to the east, we can't rule out the chances of thunderstorms early this week in the Carolinas. Now, thankfully, the ice is going to be to our north. It's stretched here through Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. And then in this part of the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia, getting up into parts of West Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. So we're not going to get enough cold air initially with this first system coming through. So it's going to be a rain event at the beginning of the week, but we could transition at the end of the week. So let's watch this. As I get this playing, let's pause it early this morning. This is 9 a.m. So we're going to be seeing quite a bit of scattered showers across the area. You can see the pink. That's where the ice is going to be located. As we go through the day today, this is midday today, getting into the afternoon. It's going to be a wet midday today for much of North Carolina as the first main band of precipitation pushes farther to the north through Virginia. But do notice right along the Appalachian Mountains where we could get some of that cold air damming, it's going to be tonight on Monday night that we could see the chances for some freezing rain in this area. Meanwhile, scattered showers across North Carolina. Getting into early tomorrow morning, so this is 5 a.m., getting through the mid-morning time period, we will have some scattered showers left over from that system. But as it moves on off to the north and east, we go a bit quieter throughout the rest of the day on Tuesday until we see the next push of moisture coming through out of system number 2. Doesn't look like much here, but system number 2 coming through the central plains of the United States. Now, what's giving us the precipitation that'll be approaching us from the southeast is there's a big high pressure cell sitting off the coast where the air is flowing around it, and there's kind of stalled out boundary in this area on which we're going to see this showers show up on Wednesday morning. But the next system I'm watching is over here in California, and it is a very potent one, and I'll show you what it's going to do here in a few moments. So ice accumulation, it's going to be here in the Virginias. So watch this area very carefully, but not enough cold air sagging to the south to get into North Carolina. And the snow, well, from the first system, the biggest snows are going to be here and out west. I'll show you those in a moment because you just got to see what's coming to the western United States. But there's a potential in through here of 8 to 12 inches of snow getting back into parts of Kansas, Nebraska, and Iowa, this corridor and through there. Now, our snow chances increase toward the end of the week. And one of the reasons why we've struggled with giving you a really accurate forecast of the system, this is kind of neat here, is because the way by which we sample the flow of the upper levels of the atmosphere comes to us from two different ways. And the first thing we're looking at here is everywhere in the United States where we launch a weather balloon. Now, over the weekend, several of these West Coast stations didn't launch. We had problems with missing data. And that's why there's been a lot of variability in your forecast in the Carolinas with this next system coming through. And I also want you to consider this. These are places around the world where we launch weather balloons. And where these storm systems are being generated right now, here in the Gulf of Alaska and the Pacific, we don't have any upper air observations from weather balloons. We have to rely on satellites, and we have to rely on buoys. Now, I bring that up because as you watch this next system roll through, it's only been in the last, I'd say, 18 hours or so that we've had a pretty good handle on it. So let's now watch the forecast using the high-resolution European model. So let's get this started. I'll walk you back and show you those next few features. So this is Monday afternoon and evening. So that's the first push we were talking about of the scattered showers, potentially some thunderstorms in here late this afternoon. Now, as we go into the overnight hours tonight, and then into tomorrow morning, that's when the first round pushes out. We've now seen the ice up here in the northern part of the Appalachian Mountains, and system number 1 clears through. Now, here's that high pressure cell I mentioned to you on Wednesday. What you're going to see is that going from Wednesday morning into afternoon and evening, we could get some showers in this area. But along with that second system now moving through the Ohio River Valley, what you're going to see is it might be bringing in by Thursday afternoon a chance for some snow in West Virginia, northern North Carolina, and back in the Appalachian Mountains. Now still, even though this is only 84 hours out in the forecast, it's only 3.5 days, the chances of this low and its position being misforecast, which means it could move, is still pretty high. If the wave creating this, the short wave, gets a little deeper, that will back this low up to the west and to the north. And what will be interesting about that is to see how much stronger of a wind that brings here across North and South Carolina and Virginia, and also what it does to this snow. The current simulation gets that low offshore quickly, such that by Thursday afternoon, it's gone, it's out. But Thursday morning, watch for the chance, overnight Wednesday into Thursday morning, watch for the chance of snow here in the northern part of the state of North Carolina, getting into Virginia and West Virginia. I'll show it to you in more detail in a moment. Well, high pressure builds into the end of the week, and it sticks around into the weekend. See, high pressure in control. But the big system that went through California now sits in the Midwest, and it appears that getting into Sunday and then Sunday afternoon, Monday morning, we could be dealing with that system over here along the East Coast. Now, the reason why I don't sound too overly confident about this is because I still have yet to see how this system here goes through California. We still got to get that to happen before we know exactly where this is going to emerge. But I want to let you know end of next weekend, early next week, we could be watching yet another system bringing in some precipitation. So let's go all the way through next Sunday night. Look at the whole of the United States for total accumulated precipitation. And you can see very active here track through the Ohio River Valley, which brings systems through the Carolinas and Virginia. But I just want to point out, look at how wet the West Coast is. And this area is in major drought right now, so they're going to need this. But zooming in on North Carolina, with the next 3 chances of rainfall, getting upwards of an inch across the state is relatively high, and the potential here, between Raleigh, Greensboro, this area, possibly getting 1.5 inches, maybe more, through next Sunday night is a possibility. Now, what about the snow? Well, here's the national map. Let's take a closer look at that system coming through Wednesday night into Thursday morning, and we see where the heaviest snows are going to be. They're, of course, going to be back here in the mountains, but just don't be surprised if out here, getting through the Piedmont to the coastal plain, we have a chance at seeing a switch over to some light snow. We'll be brief, but a chance for a switch over to light snow. From there, I just want to show you another way of looking at it. This is just through the next week, the probability of getting 1 inch. So when I tell you about these chances for snow, we're generally less than 50% of a chance here in the northern part of North Carolina. And as you get back over here toward the mountains, those probabilities, of course, increase. But look in Virginia, much higher probabilities of seeing some of that snow. All right, West Coast. We might be adding along the Sierra Nevada mountains here, which were in over a 120-inch deficit. they may be getting 120 inches of snow in some places. We have at least 60 to 90 inches of snow that are forecast here. And why I'm telling you this is because of how widespread the drought is in the West. So to see this much precipitation coming in to this area is going to go a long way to help erase some of the drought problems we're having there. Over the next week, this is just over the next 5 days, possibly 7 or 8 inches along the coast, 2 to 3 in the valleys here. I mean, this is a major precipitation event. I just want to show you this because it'll be critical to what our upcoming pattern will look like for February and March. Now, getting out to day 10, this is what the jet stream is forecast to do. And that means with the trough sweeping through here by day 10, this is going to keep the East Coast active. We can see that even by going out to day 15. Now, the European model really washes out the flow and probably doesn't have this trough as deep as it should be, bringing in some colder air. But the models continue to advertise some sort of ridge here, which would tell me to watch out for a clash between all of that right in this area. Now, what does all that mean? Well, it's maybe best to look at it from the top down, right over the North Pole. And what we see is very much like we saw in December, a strong jet coming off of Asia, weakening here over, in this part of the Pacific and the West Coast. But then look at this right here. The model continuing to advertise strong jet stream pattern here, going from the lower Mississippi River Valley, then exiting in the northeast. And what that typically means is an active pattern going into week 2. So from February 1st through February 8th, we continue to see the models advertising the wetter conditions, which means we're gonna go over to active and stay there once this next system rolls through. Temperatures. We've been very mild to the north, very mild to the north. And one of the consequences of that, by the way, is shown here. We're currently only sitting at about 10% of our Great Lakes covered in ice. And this will be more important come spring when at the peak they should hit about 55% covered in ice. But we are way behind what would be the climatological average at this point. Well, where are temperatures going? Well, today's a cooler one, as you can see here in these Monday temperatures. But the warm sector of that cyclone sitting down here, bringing in all that moisture and the warmer air with it. Well, let's see where it goes. As we get into the day on Tuesday, that's our very warm day. But it's warm on strong southerly winds transporting in the moisture, right? So this isn't like a pleasant day. It's just warm compared to normal. From Tuesday into Wednesday, there we go. Still, we're in the warm sector, but you can see the cold air that's behind this. And as we go out from there into Thursday, this is the day we're going to be watching for the snow north, right? Colder temperatures, our highs here generally upper 30s, lower 40s until you get to the coast. And as we go from Thursday into Friday, colder air tries to exit for the weekend. So there's Saturday and getting into Sunday when we get back over toward normal temperatures. Now looking out at the day 5 through 10, coldest air gets pulled back into the western United States and getting up into the western part of Canada toward Alaska. And we start to see in both models some warmer air as that cooler shot we're going to see at the end of this week exits to the east. From there, what about day 10 through 15? Well, the GFS much more aggressive with the cold across the west here. See that? The European bringing in a bit more mild Pacific air, locking away the coldest over the southwest and here over the Canadian archipelago. But what I told you was with that ridge over the southeast, the flow has just got to take off like that. And therefore, as we look out there, I think that's going to be the pattern moving forward. You'll see the longer term in a moment. A couple of things to watch. The MJO seems to be going into phase 6 and then jumping out into phase 7. Now, for us along the East Coast, that tends to just be normal. The coldest air tends to be here in phase 7. But if it comes over to this side into phase 8, in the month of February, that brings over some colder air. I've got a lot of question marks to say if the MJO was really here and not further back on this diagram. Again, it's just one of the pieces I'm watching here. What else I'm watching? The polar vortex is still substantially disrupted. Much weaker winds here in the stratosphere. But we have yet to see a deep lobe of that polar vortex getting locked in over the Hudson Bay to the Great Lakes and subsequently linking up with the tropospheric polar vortex, bringing in brutally cold air. But when I think about all of that, it just takes me to the longer term. And when I put it all together, I tend to buy what the European model is suggesting, in that with that subtropical ridge in place, an active storm track like this, we're going to be seeing more mild days than cold days. So when we look over the month of February, our chances at seeing the more mild conditions seems to be in place. There will be shots of cold air, but as I've been saying all winter long, they'll just be that. There'll be shots at colder air. And I don't anticipate us going over to a drier pattern anytime soon here on the East Coast. All right. From there, I'm going to give you a quick update on South America. The European model in the near term has been doing a great job. Over there on the left, this is the last week of satellite estimated precipitation, and this is what was forecast. Eastern Brazil dry. Southern Brazil extremely wet, where we grow a lot of full season crop here. They needed this drink. Argentina was dry, and we saw it over here in the verification. Now, over the coming week, this is total accumulated precipitation. We continue to stay very hot and dry in the east. But Mato Grosso, well, it's dry in the southeast, but more normal monsoonal rains toward the north and east, or excuse me, northwest. So this is where the monsoon's going to set up to be the heaviest. Argentina, great rains are forecast. So when you compare this to normal, this will be the region where the heat and the dryness will cause problems. But that is not a major growing area for Brazil. It's important, but it's here down to southern Brazil that tends to be the biggest growing area. In Argentina, it's right in that district there. Let's make that a little bit better drawing. Right in that district there that has the most productive region. So I look at this overall and I say over the next week, eastern Brazil is dry. The La Nina, it's making a big last kick here, but it is fading. You can see the warmer water there, and I can show you what those trade winds are doing, but it is fading. So as you look out into week 2, we actually see much better precipitation chances for a lot of Brazil, including southern Brazil, and even down into Argentina. No major red flags moving forward in terms of a weather problem into week 2. But I'll finish with this. Long range, this is what the CMC says. Very dry February north. The CMC is from Canada, by the way. Very wet south, Paraguay, Uruguay, southern Brazil, Argentina. The CFS, which is a model run in the United States, very similar. See how dry it is here and wet to the south. And then there's the Canadian, the GFS, we had looked at the Canadian. That's very wet here too throughout February. Dry in this area throughout February and wet south. The outlier is the European model, which has very normal rains, maybe a little bit wetter than normal here to the north, and then decent rains through Argentina. Now, why I'm showing you this is that I don't think there's much predictability beyond 2 weeks in South America right now. We are having a difficult time diagnosing as the La Nina fades what's controlling the monsoon. And therefore, we need to watch Brazil very carefully as they take out the first crop of beans, which they are currently about 10% behind normal, and then put in the second crop of corn and cotton. And if the models run in North America, that'd be the GFS, the CFS, and the CMC are right, we're going to have major drought problems here going into the growing of the second or safrinha crop. But if the European model is right, I don't see any problems at all, which means we're going to have to watch these models and understand why they're predicting what they predict and try to understand what that means for South American weather. Okay, thanks for giving me some extra time today to talk about South America. I think it'd be critical in the markets, and we'll watch out for these multiple systems coming through the Carolinas in the coming days here. Have a good week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.